discussion and debate, atheism, evolution, Bible study, prophecy and doctrine, social issues, and everything Christian. These are Hot Topics with your host Eric, a.k.a. Wolf. Welcome. Hello. Thank you very much for joining me today. This is Eric, a.k.a. Wolfman, and we have an interesting little thing going on today. First of all, I have a trivia question. And you can feel free to answer this in chat or answer it in the comments. It doesn't matter. The question is, what did a brilliant and well-loved U.S. president once do in a situation similar to the dilemma Putin finds himself in? Now, before everybody or anybody accuses me of being a Russian spy, let me just say that there's not too many people that are in politics that I endorse at all, period. Not many. But has Putin been pushed? That is a question we're going to look at today. What role has the United States played in what's going on today? Has Biden lost his mind? Well, yeah, I think it's pretty certain that he has. I think it's pretty apparent that he has. So maybe that question is kind of ridiculous. But there's some people out there that are saying that Biden's not doing enough, or Biden is a great president. Biden's doing the right thing. Biden is doing the good things. But let's look at what's really going on here. Because the truth is rarely told in the media today. The truth is rarely told among the people who are part of the cancel culture. Among that loud group within the millennials who think they've lived life and haven't lived a thing. They don't understand world politics. Let's take a look at what's really going on here. Let's examine this, if you would. I'm going to screen share a few things here. Bear with me just a moment while I pull this up. I want to thank you for joining me for this, by the way, and bearing with me, because it seems this morning I'm not giving a bunch of good news. Let's see what's actually going on here. So what is this all about? Why has Russia invaded the Ukraine? And we see here that at the June 2021 Brussels summit, NATO leaders reiterated the decision taken at the 2008 Bucharest summit. So 2008. Who was president in 2008? Well, I do believe that this may have been a Democrat. Could it be? Is it a Democrat? Is it a Republican? Okay. At 2008 Bucharest summit, the Ukraine would become a member of the alliance within the Membership Action Plan, MAP, as an integral part of the process, and Ukraine's right to determine its own future and foreign policy without outside influence from Russia. Now, then we go on down. What countries are trying to join NATO? As of 2021, NATO officially recognizes 3 aspiring members: Bosnia, Herzegovina, Georgia, and Ukraine. Future expansion is a topic of debate in several countries outside the alliance, like Sweden, Finland, and Serbia. Okay, so we see this, but what does this tell us? Does this tell us much of anything? Well, it certainly does tell us why we see this going on, but we don't see the whole story here. I want to show you a little bit more of the story now. You see, I'm going to read something else to you here. In a speech at the Munich Security Conference in 2007, Vladimir Putin accused Western powers of violating a solemn pledge by considerably enlarging NATO, most notably with the Baltic companies joining the alliance in 2004, asking what happened to the assurances our Western partners made after the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact. NATO has not stopped expanding since the fall of the Soviet Union, growing from 17 countries in 1990 to 30 today, several of which were once part of the Soviet-led Warsaw Pact, the origin of the betrayal claim. To understand Russia's claims of betrayal, it's necessary to review the reassurances that then U.S. Secretary of State James Baker made to former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev during a meeting on February 9th, 1990, in a discussion on the status of a reunited Germany. The two men agreed that NATO would not extend past the territory of East Germany, a promise repeated by NATO's Secretary General in a speech on May 17th that same year in Brussels. Russia and the West finally struck an agreement in September that would allow NATO to station its troops beyond the Iron Curtain. However, the deal only concerned a reunified Germany, with further eastward expansion being inconceivable at the time. Now, what in the world does all this mean? Okay, I'll tell you what it means. You see, there was a time when the gameplay of these, we were in a Cold War with the Soviet Union. Now, what was the Soviet Union? Well, just like we have NATO, which consisted of 17 nations, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, we had the Warsaw Pact. And the Warsaw Pact included nations like Russia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and all these little countries in an area we call the Baltic. The Baltic is a peninsula, you can say. And you're going to see something kind of scary here in a second. But at any rate, during the Cold War, one of the United States' tactics was to break the Soviet Union. Now, how were they going to break the Soviet Union? See, the Soviet Union was a more than one nation. You could call it kind of a United States of communism at the time. As time went on, they became much more socialist. But they were a counterpower to NATO. NATO was a counterpower to them. So, since we were in a Cold War, we weren't actively bombing each other. We were causing little skirmishes around the world. Vietnam was a war, for instance, that you could say was between the United States and China, basically. Afghanistan was a war that was fought that we tried to foster between Afghanistan and Russia to help break them. But then we also had the space race. The space race was also intended to help bring Russia to its knees and break the Russian Federation, causing them to rob all the people of the Warsaw Pact to try to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. And then we had something under the Reagan administration called MAD. MAD truly was mad, a lot of people thought. What was MAD? Mutually Assured Destruction. We invited Russia to talk. At the time, we were way ahead of Russia with nuclear weapons, nuclear submarines, delivery systems, and etc. Various types of missiles that are used in warfare and conventional warfare as well. Militarily, we were way ahead of Russia. So we come up with this plan called Mutually Assured Destruction. Now, Mutually Assured Destruction was this. We were going to allow the Soviet Union to catch up with us militarily. That was with ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, nuclear warheads, battleships, nuclear submarines, and conventional arms. We were going to encourage them to catch up with us so that we could, quote unquote, trust one another. And we told the Soviet Union that if you become as powerful as we are, then neither one of us have to worry about the other attacking. Because if we do, we're surely going to be mutually destroyed. Thus the name destruction. Mutually assured destruction. So that's what MAD was all about. All of this was to help break the Soviet Union. Now, President Gorbachev was head of the Soviet Union, and I was there. I saw the day that Reagan kept saying, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." Now, what was he talking about? He was talking about the wall that at the time separated East Germany from West Germany. And you could say NATO from the Warsaw Pact. The Russian Federation. It's what divided us. East Germany was part of the Russian Federation. East Germany was part of the Communist bloc. East Germany was beyond the Iron Curtain. And Reagan was telling them, look, you guys are going broke. Let's be friends. Tear down this wall. And we'd been taking other avenues to try to become friends with the Soviet Union, sending them grain and wheat, offering them little bribes to, come on, let's do this. Let's be friends. We can do this. Now, a lot of people will say that Gorbachev was a weak leader. He was eventually overthrown. But after he brought down that wall, he worked out a deal to allow Germany to be reunified. See, this occurred after Nazi Germany had destroyed so many Jews in so many nations of the world, with hostile invasions, blitzkriegs that took over Poland and Czechoslovakia, and etc., all of which later became satellite nations for the Soviet Union. Now I want to show you something here. What you see here in this map, over on the right, you see the Russian Federation in purple. Now, all of these little nations around it, you have Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, Poland, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Austria, Serbia, Bulgaria. All of these nations were part of the communist bloc. They were part of the sphere of influence that was held by the Soviet Union. Really, a mess of countries. You call this little peninsula right here, where you see Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, and etc., Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Hungary, Austria. This little peninsula right in here, you call the Balkans. Okay. Now, we had promised, we had given assurances when we were encouraging them to tear down that wall, to bust up the Warsaw Pact. We will help you. We will be your friends. We will help feed you. We promised them. I was there, my friends. I lived this. We promised them that we were not going to encroach on the nations that were part of the Warsaw Pact and within their sphere of influence. NATO is going to leave you alone. Now, does that sound familiar to you? You know, there's a lot of millennials and a lot of people in general would say, well, look what we did to the American Indian, Native Americans. We made them all these promises. We made all these treaties. And then look what we did. Well, we did the very same thing here, my friend. We've done this throughout our history. This is nothing new. This is nothing any different. Now, I want to show you this. These are the member states of NATO. That's exactly what this is. Okay? Talking about founding and changes in membership of NATO forces. Now, I want to take my time with this for you. Let you understand what's really going on here. Look at the date here. April 1st, 2009. Albania became a part of NATO. And Russia complained. You see, Germany is way over here to the left. And we promised them we were not going to go right of Germany. But yet we did. There we are, right there. And this big area that you see right up here, this is Russia. This area that you see down here on its border, that's Turkey. Turkey is also a part of NATO. You see this big island-looking thing right up here? Right up here. I hope you can see that. Let me bring it up even further. Right here, that's part of NATO. So they're on the southern border. Before we made this agreement with Russia, Turkey was already a part of NATO down here on its border. Up here on its off its northern coast, up here was already NATO. Way back before we made the agreement that we were not going to proceed any further. We promise you we won't. You have our word. And yet, there it is, Albania, right there. So let's scroll on down and see what else have we got here. Belgium, okay, was part of NATO. Where is Belgium? It's right over here. It was already part of NATO. And then we go over here to Bulgaria. Where is Bulgaria? March 29, 2004. Uh-oh, right there in red. We're getting closer again to the Russian border. We are down in the Balkans now, part of the Warsaw Pact. Part of the land we told them that we would not go to. We will not expand. And yet there we are. That was 2004. That was the breaking of our word to Russia. Then over here, also in 2009, and then 1999, 2009, and then 2004. These were not good times for Russia. Right here we have Croatia. Croatia is right in here among these Balkan nations where we promised we would not expand to. We're not going to take in any more people in your area. We promise. Uh-oh. Czechia. Where's this at? 1999, right there, right above the Balkans. Right there. Well, actually, part of that little peninsula, part of the Balkans, the area we told them we are not going to go further into. We promise you. And yet, 1999, there they went. Now, here's Denmark, that little land above their northern border. And then, March 29, 2004, Estonia. Uh-oh, right on their border. Estonia is right on their border, part of the Balkans, part of the Soviet bloc that we promised them we are not going to expand to. Now, here's France. Of course, France was part of it way before it, but you see, France is over on the western side, west of the area of the Warsaw Pact and the Balkans. But it's still right in there. Now, let's go a little bit further. Germany. Now, I want you to see this because, you see, we promised them we would not go anywhere east of Germany. And yet all these places that I'm pointing out to you are east of Germany. All of these places that joined 1999, 2009, and 2004. Now, Greece was a NATO member before all this, and we see that it is at the very southern portion of what used to be the old Soviet bloc. Of course, it was not part of the Soviet bloc. It was a NATO member originally. But what about Hungary? Well, Hungary is certainly east of Germany, and it was part of the Warsaw Pact, the Russian Federation. We told them we will not expand there. Of course, then there's Italy off to the west of that, and then what about Latvia? Let's look at Latvia. Uh-oh, look, Latvia too, right on the Russian border. Isn't that crazy? How about Lithuania? Uh-oh. Lithuania is right there with them. Can you believe that? We promised them we are not going into that area. Luxembourg was one of the original members in 1949, and it's in that area. But we had already been there. We just promised them we weren't going to expand further into that region. How about the Netherlands? Uh-oh, that tiny little area, but it's still in that area, isn't it? That was an old member, too, that was already there. North Macedonia. Uh-oh. It's part of the Balkans, too. Part of the old Russian Federation where we told them we will not invade. We will not take over the old Warsaw Pact. Look at this. Poland, March 1999. Part of the Soviet bloc right there. Big nation in red right there. Where we told them, east of Germany. Poland is east of Germany. We're not going to go there. We promise. We will leave you alone. How about Romania? Romania too. Yep, it used to be part of the Soviet blocs, part of the Warsaw Pact. How about Slovakia? Yep, Slovakia too, my friends. There we see it right there in red. Spain in 1972, that happened before. Turkey, 1952, but you can see where Turkey is. Turkey is right there, just below Russia. So what are we seeing? Actually, what we're seeing, my friend, I'm going to pull this back up. What we're seeing, my friend, is this. This entire area is now either NATO or people wanting to be NATO. Now, Ukraine is right here. Ukraine is this country right here, this larger nation right here. And you see, we promised Russia that we would not encroach here. But that's not all. Serbia is thinking about joining too. Serbia is another nation down in here. So what you're getting is Biden, Bush, the Clintons, all these people have been encroaching upon territory that we promised Russia when they broke up their Soviet Union and their Warsaw Pact. We promised them that we would not encroach in these areas. And we have effectively been surrounding Russia. This is an aggressive act, my friends. This is an ongoing act of constant aggression that we have been carrying on against the Soviet Union that has not been aggressive towards us. Now, have we been doing proxy wars against each other? Sure. That's a given. That's strategy. But we keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and Russia is not trying to take over nations. Can you imagine if Russia invited Canada and Mexico and Central America and South American nations to be a part of their new Warsaw Pact? We wouldn't let that happen, my friend. Now, that's what we're doing, though. Effectively, we are surrounding Russia. We have put Putin in a position to where he has to show a display of power. Now, what's Putin doing? Putin is invading Ukraine. So, what does this do? Now, you see, Putin called our bluff because he was fed up. He said, I've got to do something, and I've got to chump them out. I've got to back them down. I've got to show a display of power of my own. I've got to show some spine and backbone. Trusting, of course, that Biden has none. So he's put Biden in the position now that we've either got to send troops into Ukraine to fight Russia, or we've got to attack Russia. We've got to do something, but no. Is Mr. Biden going to be chumped out and backed down? Well, I don't think that he has the nerve for this fight. But is Biden even in control? I don't think so. Some of you may believe he is. I don't think so. I think he is a patsy. I think he is a figurehead. Look, this little country right down here, Bosnia, Herzegovina, they're wanting to bring it. It's already brought in. And then here's Serbia right here that they're still wanting to bring in. And there's Romania, Bulgaria, Ukraine, Lithuania, Belarus, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Czech Republic, Croatia. All of these things right here on Russia's doorstep. Thank you, brother, for dropping in. God bless you, Oxfordshire, man. And yes, the answer to the trivia question is John F. Kennedy. And now for that story. John F. Kennedy was put in a similar situation in the very early 1960s. It became known as the Cuban Missile Crisis. What was the Cuban Missile Crisis? The Cuban Missile Crisis is this. Russia, in a display of power and a display of aggression, intended on putting missiles in Cuba with nuclear tips. Now, with ICBMs at the time, ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, being what they are, they took a while to get here back then. They're much faster now. But within, 30, 40 minutes, the United States could have been absolutely destroyed from any number of places. But 90 miles off our coast lies Cuba, where Washington, D.C., and major cities across the United States could have been wiped out in minutes. Just 90 miles off our coast. Now, President Kennedy was a young president, But this was a man with backbone. This was a man who saw the threat, the same threat that Putin sees today, as we are surrounding his nation with NATO troops and NATO arms in violation of the agreements that we made when we were saying, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. President Kennedy stood like a man, and he scared the world half to death. Half of the United States thought this man's a lunatic, talking about President Kennedy. He was not going to let Russia chump him out. He was not going to let Russia punk him out, like we're trying to do to Putin right now. Putin's a strong leader, and here we are intentionally trying to punk him out before the world. That's why Putin said, no, my friend, this is not Putin warmongering. This is the United States pushing the agenda and warmongering. This is us breaking our agreement again, just like we have broken our treaties and agreements all through our history, my friend. But President John F. Kennedy stood up and he says, no, no, no. I'm going to tell you right now, Russia, if you move anything toward us, we are going to sink your ships. End of story. We put up a naval blockade. We put up a naval blockade around Russia, and if the first ship that they sent in that direction to drop off missiles in Cuba, John F. Kennedy told them in no uncertain terms, we don't care if it starts World War III. You're going to be the one starting it. We are going to sink your ships. We are going to sink everyone that has the potential to carry these nuclear-tipped weapons to Cuba. Every single one. We don't care if it's a fishing vessel. You move one in that direction. We dare you. We dare you. President Kennedy was a man of conviction. He was a man with a backbone. This was the Russian missile crisis. But he didn't take flack from his own people either. The people who tried to do Operation Northwoods, his own chiefs of staff, his own CIA trying to start a war with Cuba in the Bay of Pigs. He was a man of conviction, and he was looking out for the United States of America. He was looking out for the American people. Was he a perfect man? No. My goodness, no. But he certainly had the spine to do what needed to be done back then. Just like Putin has the spine right now. And we chumped out Russia. President Kennedy chumped out Russia. They said, okay. They put their tails between their legs and they kept their ships at home. They took Kennedy at his word. Just like Putin right now is chumping out the United States because of our stupidity. Now, how do we look to the whole world? Weak. That's how we look. We look stupid and weak. We look like the warmongers. Now, our own press isn't going to spin it that way because most of our press is behind this senile old fart that's sitting in the president's office right now. Trying to make him look good. But there you have it. What did a brilliant and well-loved U.S. president once do in a situation similar to the dilemma Putin finds himself in? Well, my friend, he told him, if you send a ship this way, we're going to sink every single one. We don't care. If that starts World War III, so be it. But you are not setting missiles in Cuba. Period. End of story. Dare me. And just like they were chumped, now we are being chumped. And once again, we have been made to look like the laughing stock of the world. I will give my opinion on what we traded in our last president for, but I'll let the results speak for themselves. Is there a politician I trust? No, not a single one. Not a single one. But I do believe that some have more of a conscience than others, and some actually want to see America do well. Yeah, I believe that too, Mr. Oxfordshire man. I believe that he's putting that in. But I don't think that that's going to happen yet. I think that is still a little ways off. I think that all of these things are building up to that, though, and eventually building to Armageddon. But I think that's a ways off. I don't think we're in any danger to see these things occur in the next day or two or the next week or two. And I agree with you here, too. God has weakened the West and strengthened Russia. But, you got to ask, too, why has God weakened the West and strengthened Russia? I think that answer is simple, my friend. You see, we're no longer a nation that has just forgotten God. We're now the nation that mocks God. Whereas Russia, the bad guy, Mr. Vladimir Putin, is the guy that, for over a decade now, he's been the man that's been rebuilding the churches in Russia that the former communist bloc destroyed. Yes, that's right, Mr. Oxfordshire man. Things are happening quickly as prophesied. They're building towards prophecy. That is for sure. The fulfillment of all things is not far off. Now, I'm not saying it's right around the corner. I don't believe it is. I believe we've got a little bit left to go. We've got quite a bit of prophecy that's still got to be fulfilled, I think, before this happens. But I tell you what I think is going to happen. We're going to have a fake Armageddon before we see the real Armageddon. Because we have to have a fake Armageddon. We have to have something that looks like it is a threat to annihilate the entire world. That has to happen before a world ruler will step up. Now, he's not going to take complete sovereignty of every nation, but he will cause all people to take a mark so that he can exercise economic control over the world. That will happen. And what's got to happen before that happens is the world has to hit a global crisis. What is this global crisis? Well, I think that we're going to see a global economic crash. And then this global economic crash is going to trigger the threat of global nuclear war, thermonuclear war. And then that man of sin will step up and say, I've got the solutions. And then eventually he and the other world leaders will lead us into Armageddon. But all this is the plan of God. It's going to come to pass. I agree with you. And yes, Andy, I know you are, brother. Mr. Oxfordshire man just sounds dignified. So, know a couple of things, that all of this is in God's plan, my friend. But Vlad Putin, in all fairness, he's not the warmonger in this situation. He's doing what he has to do to protect himself, to protect his nation. Just like we once did when President Kennedy saw his crisis in Cuba. And we saw the Cuban Missile Crisis. So recognize what's going on. Don't fall for all the hype. Notice that, as is our habit, we are simply breaking more of our promises to people we told we were going to be friends with and work with. You know, Obama tried to make Russia look bad and kept trying to push war with Russia and Syria, Iran, Russia's allies, where she has ports. We saw Hillary trying to push for that same war. That was part of all of the Trump and Russian collusion stuff. They were trying to push for war before Trump won the election. And now that the Biden puppet is in, the people that are ruling Biden are doing the exact same thing, following the exact same agenda, pushing at Russia with everything that they've got. So let's recognize the truth, my friend. God bless you, Mr. Oxfordshire, man. You have a good day at work. I want to thank you all for joining me. This is Eric, a.k.a. Wolfbitten. There you have a little history. And there you have a little picture of the Russia we are surrounding with NATO when we promised them we wouldn't back in the 1980s. God bless you all, my friend. This is Eric Jewell, a.k.a. Wolfbitten. This is Hot Topics, and this is one hot topic. And we are out, my friends. God bless you all. Have a great day. We love you.